So I wanted to start with this question. Who is Paris McNeil? Now, this was the question that I was asked in the job interview that I had to undertake to get my current role. It's a pretty daunting question, isn't it? It was simultaneously the most simple and the most complicated question that I had ever been asked. So, who is Paris McNeil? Well, I'm a PC old girl. I'm a speaker, a lawyer, a judge's associate, a runner, and an amateur cricketer as of very recently. But that's what I do, not who I am. So, who am I? Well, let me tell you, I'm a driven, positive, caring young woman with an insatiable love of learning and a commitment to improving every single day. I'm a passionate advocate, and my mission in life is to help other people, particularly young women, to be the best versions of themselves. And you might be thinking, oh, well, that's all very well and nice, Paris, that you know what you're doing with your life. But I have no idea. And we all get really caught up on this idea of having a purpose. Next slide, please. We get to a stage where we feel like, I need to know what's going on. I need to know what I'm doing with my life. I need to know what I'm passionate about. And when you get to the end of year 10, when you're choosing your subjects, you need to know so that then you can pick your degree to then work in this career for the rest of your life. But when you boil it down, your purpose in life is actually pretty simple. Next, please. The only reason that you are on this planet is to be you. And we get really caught up worrying and trying to be someone that we're not. Being someone who is a smaller, less bright, less vibrant version of ourselves. Being someone who we think we should be rather than who we really are. But it hasn't always been like that. Next, please. If you've ever been in a room of 4-year-old boys, next please, you'll know that if I were to ask, who here is the strongest or the fastest, all of those 4-year-old boys, their hands would shoot straight up. And then they'd probably laugh or scream or jump and giggle and be so unapologetically themselves. We also get pretty good at this when we're old. So there comes a time where there's more years behind you than there are in front, and you know what you like and what you don't, and frankly, you don't have time for people pleasing, so you say things like, I don't like your music, turn it off. So, what are we doing in that big chunk of time in the middle? How do we learn to get comfortable being ourselves? Next, please. The answer is authenticity. Authenticity is your superpower, and inauthenticity will guarantee failure. If you're living your life trying to be someone that you're not, you might get some small wins along the way. But I can guarantee that in the end, you're going to be miserable because you're living someone else's life. And we see this in the kind of content that we're watching online, on TikTok and Instagram. We've really moved away from that beautiful, perfectly manicured content to stuff that's real, where you actually learn something from the person that you're watching. So what do I mean by authenticity? It's not just that we all have individual features, not that we all have our own fingerprints, irises, or tongue prints. I didn't know we all had tongue prints, did you? But it's also that no one has ever been you. No one ever will be you. No one has had the same experience as you. And for that reason, you are unique. Oprah Winfrey said, if I knew that I was going to make this much money being authentic, I would have started years ago. So let's talk about it. Next, please. Let's talk about the most famous person in the world right now. Who is it? Tell me. Yeah, absolutely. No guesses there. Like her or not, Taylor Swift is incredibly authentic, and she's living her life on her own terms. That's why she's got such a big following and such a big community. She's not pretending to be someone that she's not. She's real. Why does everyone cry at her events? It's because she's one of those people that's larger than life. But that's a really funny term to me, larger than life, because most of us live our lives in this teeny weeny little part of ourselves that's probably no bigger than our toe. And yet we label people like this larger than life. So what's the difference? Even if you don't like Taylor, there's probably someone else that you can think of who is larger than life. The difference with those people is that they know who they are. They know what they're here to do, and they're doing it. Taylor Swift isn't trying to be someone else. She knows who she is, she knows what she's here to do, and she's getting it done. Next, please. So when we have the courage to lean into what we really want for our lives, to ask ourselves the hard questions, and to take steps outside your comfort zone, it is truly incredible what you can achieve. Next, please. But Taylor Swift is also a woman. And because of that, she gets put in little boxes and pigeonholed and criticised for things that no man ever would. There was a recent story about how she donated $100,000 to a GoFundMe page, and people were criticising her for that. I cannot believe, and I refuse to believe, that someone like Justin Bieber or Harry Styles would get criticised for the same things. Next, please. As women, we face more and different barriers than men that we have to overcome. We still have people telling us that we're not good enough, that we can't do the jobs, that we can't run the businesses or be the CEOs. But it also gets told to us in more subtle ways. Next, please. So in entrepreneurship, over the last 30 years, the total amount of global venture capital funding, so the total amount of money that's given to startups, out of that total, next please, only 2.4% was given to female-founded ventures. 2.4%. And to put that in a bit more context, next please, the women that did get that money, on average, only received 25% of what they asked for, while their male counterparts received on average 50% of what they asked for. That's double the amount. And it's not just in business. Next, please. Time and time again, we get told that women's sport isn't as good, it's not as exciting, people aren't engaged with it. Do you remember last year when the Matildas were the biggest thing? Everyone was watching, everyone was talking about it. There were pop-ups in the city where you could watch the games. Next, please, you'll see there was even an entire plane watching the penalty shootout. Like, how amazing is that? But what you might not know is that for the Matildas' stellar performance for coming 4th overall in the World Cup, they received less than a quarter of what the Socceroos made for coming 11th. To put that in a bit more context, let's say the Matildas did even better and they came first. They won the entire World Cup. They would have received $4 million in prize money. The Socceroos, just for qualifying, so they could not win a single game and they would have taken home $8 million. Again, double what the Matildas would have won for winning. But it's not just in sport either. Women face more barriers in the media as well. Carl Stefanovic is one of the hosts of the Today Show on Channel 9, and he did an experiment where he wore the same suit every day for an entire year. And what happened? There was no criticism. No one noticed. There were no articles, no comments, nothing. And what he did at the end of the year was he pulled together all of the articles, all of the criticism written about his co-host Lisa Wilkinson, about how she doesn't take enough pride in her appearance, and if I show you on the next one, this ridiculous article, in my opinion. Next slide, please. They called her out for wearing the same shirt 4 months apart. And Carl Stefanovic is sitting next to her wearing the same suit every single day for a year. And what makes me really frustrated about this is that most of the comments and most of the criticism was written by women. So not only do we face more barriers, but we're also putting them up for ourselves. Next, please. In order to move forward, we need to reframe our mindset and go from one of competition to one of collaboration. We get taught so young that if one woman is succeeding, there's not room for anyone else, there's not room for me, so we need to bring her back down to my level. But that is simply not true. A rising tide lifts all ships. When we invest in women, everyone benefits. That's why the responsibility is on all of us to make changes and continue to push to increase the opportunities, the visibility and the power for women around the world. Recently, there's been a lot of women saying, no, well, I'm not a feminist, saying on social media, I don't want to be a feminist, I don't like what feminism is, I think it's already pretty good for women, we don't need to make more change. I am calling that out. The only reason that I am here able to talk to you, an entire theatre of educated young women, is because of the women who fought tooth and nail before us for us to have these opportunities. And the fight is not over, not by a long stretch. Next, please. International Women's Day is our reminder that we need to continue to advocate for change, to strive forward to ensure that women around the world are included, respected, and valued. Next, please. International Women's Day is an annual event because it has to be. Every year it comes around as our reminder to be grateful for what we have, but also to keep pushing forward, because if we don't, all the progress that we've made could slip away. You only have to look to places like the US or Afghanistan to see that all it takes is one political decision, and then just like that, so many of women's rights are gone. And that's why International Women's Day is so important. It's not about cupcakes or making friendship bracelets or a tokenistic holiday. It's about making change. It's about acknowledging the women who came before us, who have given us all that we have, and to respect and keep pushing because the fight is not over. We each have a responsibility to continue to advocate for equal pay in sport, to call out bias in the media, to empower each other to live our most authentic lives, and to make sure that we safeguard these opportunities for our daughters and our granddaughters who are still to come. So in the words of the suffragettes, this International Women's Day, we need deeds, not words. Next, please. And that means action that makes a real difference for women in Australia and around the world. Thank you.